groupies, it's Demo Donna here with Sparkle and Sprinkle, and I have part 2 of heat embossing techniques. So in this video, I am going to show you what to do with your chipboard. We all have it. We have drawers of it. And we're like, Demo Donna, what am I going to do with this? Do I paint it? Do I glue it? What do I do? Well, today we are going to make it so awesome. Look at how cool that is. Woo! And that is with heat embossing. I am also going to show you what to do with your super thick white embossing powder. It's such a cool technique. And then I have one more cool trick up my sleeve, so stick around to the final end and you are going to learn 3 awesome things about embossing. Enjoy. So we are going to take this piece of chipboard, which, you know, when you first get them in your package, they look pretty simple in that cardboard color. And a lot of people paint them, spray paint them, glue them, but I am going to show you how to turn them into any color embossing powder you have. So you're simply going to start out with your Versamark, and I am doing this over my piece of scrap paper instead of on my filter, just to make sure that the Versamark doesn't get on my coffee filter, because therefore my embossing powders would stick to it. So I'm going to Versamark over my whole piece of chipboard. Now I'm simply going to take Pines Green. So like I said, you can do this to turn your chipboard into any color of embossing powder you have. So I'm going to take my Pines Green and just cover it up. My tweezer tool, which will help me from keeping my fingers burned. And once you do that, then you just go ahead and heat set. And these chipboard pieces are from Want to Scrap, which is an awesome company that has a ton of different types of chipboard. And we have those available on sparkleandsprinkle.com as well. So heat set. Now, if you're going to leave it as one color, I recommend doing 2 coats of that one color and then you would be completed. So you would Versamark over the whole thing again, sprinkle your Pines Green and heat set, and you would be good to go and you would have a nice, beautiful, solid color of embossing powder. Now we are going to get a little fancy. So I'm going to take my Versamark again and go over the whole thing. So I've got my base coat of embossing powder and my Versamark down now. And I'm going to take another color. So this is how you get to do these really fancy guys, like this guy here and here and here. And that is by layering, which is really fun. And we did that in Embossing Powder Part 1. And now I'm going to take my Satin Velvet and I am just going to go ahead and sprinkle a little bit of my Satin Velvet. And you can just go ahead and put it down wherever you'd like. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my Magic Speckle. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a little Magic Speckle down there, which will be really fun. And then I'm just going to finish up with a little super thick clear. It's because you want to just cover up anything that still has the Versamark on it. So sprinkle that on. Take your tweezers to save your fingers and then go ahead and heat set. You can see right away how pretty the Magic Speckle is on top of the darker colors. It does a really cool mosaic look. And now we are all done heat setting. So you can, at this point, leave that just like that. If you decide you don't like it, you could take your Versamark again, go over the whole thing, and throw another color on, which is really fun. And what I'm going to do at this point is I am going to go ahead and take my piece of beautiful chipboard that we just created. I love it. And then I am going to take my stamp set. This is from Journal Mixed Media, which is a really cool stamp set. You've got this vintage piece of newspaper clipping, you have a coffee stain, and then you have the bubble wrap. So in order to stamp into your embossing powder, I'm just going to go ahead and put Versamark all over my stamp design. So Versa your whole stamp, and then I am going to reheat my chipboard. So what I do is I just apply direct heat to my already heat embossed chipboard, and you can start to see it move around, and that's how you know it is nice and hot. And then I'm going to take my stamp and just go right into it, and this is going to put a super cool texture on my piece of chipboard. So there you can see how cool that is. And at this point you can leave it just like that, or we can take a little bit of embossing powder. This is Antique Pewter, and just sprinkle a little bit over that. And then I am going to sprinkle a little bit on this side, just like that. Give it a good flick. And then I am going to heat set. So right now the embossing powder is just sitting in all the little crevices. So when I go ahead and add a touch of heat to it, that is going to melt that really cool silvery finish. And you don't want to overheat it. Just give it a touch. And there we go. We just created this really awesome embellishment just by using our chipboard and our embossing powder. And you can add this to a card. So here is some chipboard added to a card base, and you've got 3 different pieces of chipboard here. So it's so beautiful and adds a beautiful dimensional embellishment. And here it is added to a front of a little mini album, which is really pretty, and that's just using our embossing powder with glitter in it. And you can also, of course, add it to your scrapbook pages. So how gorgeous is that page with that beautiful piece of chipboard and the 2 different colors added to it. So next I'm going to show you a really quick run through of how to do a solid glitter version, and I'm just going to speed it up since you already know how to do the bases and just run through the quick tips.
Take your piece of chipboard and cover the entire thing with Versamark. Make sure every part of your chipboard on the front side is covered with your Versamark. And then I am using the Detail White Embossing Powder, and I'm going to sprinkle that over the entire piece of chipboard on the front. And then I'm going to use my tweezer tool, go ahead and heat set the whole thing. Once that's heated and cooled, I am going to take my Versamark pad and go over the whole thing again. And then I'm going to take the brand new Ocean glitter, it's so gorgeous, I just love it, and sprinkle that all over my already white melted embossing powder. And then heat set, and what you're doing here is you're melting the glitter into the base coat of embossing powder. And the reason I used white is so the glitter shows up. If I just had done a clear and then you saw the brown with the glitter, the blue glitter on top of it, it would have looked a little muddy. So starting with the base coat of the white makes it so whatever glitter color you put on, it really pops. So this is such a fun technique, and you can do it with all of Sparkle and Sprinkle's awesome glitter colors.
Whew. Are you following all of this? Okay, it's very important to remain hydrated. So get your water out. I mean, during this intense embossing workout, you're going to need to remember to drink a lot of water. Right now, white embossing powder is super popular, and I'm going to quickly walk you through the differences in all the different white embossing powders out there. So the first is white detail, and white detail is great when you've got really fine detail words. I stamped the white detail right here so you can see it kind of picks up all of the detail of the stamp. The next is just a regular white embossing powder, which would be this guy here, and that's used for all your basic stamping. So like these flowers, for instance, I would have stamped with just regular white embossing powder, and you can see it's a little bit thicker than the detail, and it does a nice full coverage. And then next is super thick white embossing powder. And super thick white embossing powder is this guy here. You can see it's more of a glossy, it's a bit chunkier, it's fuller, and super thick embossing powder like this I would use on a solid stamp design. So something like this it works out just fine on because they've got a lot of solid area inside of the flowers here. And then next I've got Winter White. So you can see Winter White, which is a cosmic embossing powder, isn't as intense as your basic whites. And that is Winter White embossing powder right here, and that is from the Cosmic collection. So a trick with all of our cosmics is taking your Swiffer duster after you stamp it and it's cooled and wiping off the shimmer that's left behind, especially on your darker color papers or your lighter color papers if you're using dark embossing powders. And then last I did Opaline, and that's really pretty. It turns out a little whiter on lighter cardstock, but you can see it here, and that just does like a shimmery, glossy type of feel. So that is our collection of white embossing powders, and those are seen all over Pinterest right now. It's really fun to see the different techniques done with the white embossing powders. And I am going to show you using my awesome stamp set here, and this is the Silhouette stamp set. And everything on this stamp set is amazing, and I am going to show you a little bit of what I call 3D embossing. And what I'm going to do is take my paper, and this is awesome, really thick cardstock from the Paper Cut, and we have that available on our website. And I'm going to take my big Silhouette stamp in this stamp set, which looks just like this guy here, and go ahead and ink it up with your Versamark. And I rubbed my little static guy over my cardstock first. And now I'm just going to take my stamp and stamp it right on there. For bigger stamp sets, you can always stand up a little bit. Just stand up, give a little bit of pressure, and then you've got a nice solid stamp design. Now I'm going to take Skylight. So whenever I'm doing 3D embossing like this, I like to either use a color very similar to my cardstock, or I use like a clear, so it does more like a watermark. So I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle my Skylight embossing powder, and this is a semi-transparent, and this also comes from the Cosmic collection. But since it's on a light color cardstock, you're not going to see the shimmer left behind, so I'm not going to worry about using my Swifter to clean that up. All right, good save. So now I'm going to take my heat tool and heat set. So after you've completed heat setting your Skylight, I am going to take my Versamark again and go over my whole Silhouette stamp. And then I'm going to take my static free bag, especially because I'm using white embossing powder. So I don't want there to be any specks left where they shouldn't be. And then I'm going to take my stamp again, and I'm going to go right over it, but it doesn't have to be perfect. We're looking to do a type of shadow look. So I'm going to stand and give it a little extra pressure. And this is really fun, and now you're just layering your embossing powders on your stamp design. So this is another version of layering, but instead of doing it on chipboard or just on your piece of paper as a background, you're doing it with your stamps. So now I'm going to tap that off and then heat set. Okay, so now you've created this really cool shadow effect using embossing powder and layering, and you can do that with 2 colors. Here I did it with 3 colors. I just started with my Satin, oh gosh, what is it called? Satin Velvet, Pines Green, and then my Detail White on top. So that was really fun. And my last trick up my sleeve for embossing powder is taking your plain embossing powder, putting it on your Terrific tape, and just using it as borders without heat setting. So go a little crazy, have some fun, and you can see how cool it is incorporated into a card. There are my 3 embossing powders that I used when I created our piece of chipboard in the beginning. And here they are just left plain. So you can see what a cool different effect it is on your card. If you have any questions, leave them in your comment section. Well, I hope you had as much fun as I did during part 2 embossing powder technique of the week by Demo Donna here at Sparkle and Sprinkle's YouTube channel. We appreciate all your awesome feedback, so feel free to leave a comment. You can give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed what you saw. Share with your friends, your family, your dog sitter. Share away. And thanks again for being a subscriber. Till next week, friends.